Hello, viewers. It's Into the Fire, episode number 30. It's November the 1st, 2024. I am really stoked to be back after our long break, which lasted a few months. And I am super excited about tonight. We've got an exceptional guest. It's going to be Jason Schechterle. And it's an individual that I have been watching from afar for a long time and just really, really impressed with. You'll notice that Ronnie is not with us tonight. Actually, Ronnie had left the police department ultimately. I mean, he was with us as a cold case guy, but he had an opportunity that came up that led him to Muskogee. And because of that, his schedule just did not allow for him to come on at this time. So he'll probably try to make it on here from time to time, but for the time being, it's just going to be me, and I probably will have one of our guests or something like that join us here and now, or now and again, and we'll see. And since we've been on such a long break, hopefully we're not going to have any technical difficulties. We've been kind of ironing out some of those as this thing started. But I want to welcome everybody for joining us. Those of you that are going to be coming back, I know that the old faithful viewers, I've been hearing a lot of comments that they really wanted to have us come back, and they've been eagerly awaiting our return. So I'm looking forward to communicating with you once again, and especially when we're entering into the winter months. And I've got some exceptional guests coming our way. I've got with Jason, I figured he'd be the number one guy to start with. And then I have somebody from the CIA that is also a handwriting expert. She was with the CIA, but she's a handwriting expert. That'll be next week. I think I might be having a warden on then. And then one after that, I may have to switch her, but there's another exceptional guest as well. I've got just great guests lined up, and I think we're going to have a great time. Like I said, episode number 30. This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting, brought to you out of Utah. If you want to check us out, KGRA Digital Broadcasting, you can get a discount code if you wanted to sign on, so you can get the full discount or full access to all the videos of all of the other shows. You get 30% off for subscribing, and you can put DET White on there. Also, I want to remind you that, they have a couple of other great shows. You have Briefing with the Chief that comes on, as well as the show that comes on right behind me. I hope it comes on right behind us. And we have iDetective that's on Wednesdays. I love that show as well. That's got Chris DiPerno. Awesome. And then we have Wiretap. Wiretap comes on right behind me, and I miss seeing his episodes. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. If you're into this type of programming, hey, check his show out. It's great. Let's jump right into our guest for tonight. I'm really, really excited about having him on. He is somebody that, honestly, we share a lot of commonalities. This guy started on the job about the same time that I did, as far as age-wise. I remember this incident when I remember it. And the reason why I do is because I heard about it. I had a Crown Vic that was very, very close to the age of his, and then there was a recall. And I remember this happening, and I heard about it then. And then years later, actually, I had written him. We'll get to that in a minute. But Jason Schechterle, he basically is a retired Phoenix police officer. Growing up, Jason had one dream, and that's to serve the Phoenix police, or serve as a police officer with Phoenix. Inspired by the tragic loss of a local law enforcement hero, Jason worked persistently towards his dream. After serving 4 years in the Air Force, at the age of 26, Jason achieved his goal to work on the streets of Phoenix as a rookie police officer. Then, only 14 months into what was supposed to be a lifelong career, Jason's life took an unexpected, dramatic, at the time, a tragic turn. On the night of March 26, 2001, a taxi cab crashed into the rear of Jason's patrol car. And this cab was driving like 115 miles an hour. The taxi driver had a seizure, and it caused him to run into his car. Upon impact, Jason's car burst into flames, trapping him inside with temperatures reaching over 700 degrees. Through a series of miraculous and fateful circumstances, Jason survived the crash and ensuing physical and emotional catastrophe. He suffered severe burns to over 40% of his body, which drastically altered his appearance. He has undergone more than 55 surgeries just to have the ability to accomplish simple daily tasks we often take for granted. Jason's journey chronicles his fight for life, his triumph over tragedy, and the inspiration that enables him to continue to overcome unimaginable adversity. His personal narrative exemplifies that the power of the human spirit can never be underestimated or extinguished. His story is one of life, rebirth, and transformation, and Jason represents the human experience at its very best. An ascent from despair to describing himself as the luckiest person alive. And Amanda, if you don't mind, if you can, would you start that video for us, please? That 2-minute clip.
He should be dead. He should have died right there at the scene.
Engine 4, come take care of the burn victim in the P car. Police officer Vernon, on a seatbelt.
Phoenix police officer Jason Schechterle's Ford Crown Victoria patrol car was rear-ended by a taxi and burst into flames.
Give me a first alarm medical. Police car involved. Your car copy, 30-year-old male prone, one Wood Burn, Coleman County.
People do not survive when their entire head and upper body is engulfed in flame and smoke. It's just physiologically impossible.
His patrol car exploded into a ball of fire, and somehow he survived.
You know, I got that phone call, got in my car and raced down to the hospital, and when I saw him, I really couldn't even believe what I was looking at. He just had this charred black head. So I took my knuckle right here and I hit his forehead, and it felt like I was hitting this concrete floor. I mean, he's burned through all the layers of the skin, through the fat, through the muscle, down to the bone. And by the grace of God, not only is he alive, he's probably going to live through it, and then what is he going to be left with? A guy or a gal who gives back, not asking for anything, just wants to continuously improve everyone's situation. That, to me, is the definition of a hero.
Jason is definitely a hero indeed. I would like to welcome Jason Schechterle.
How you doing, bud?
Man, I am honored. I am very honored to have you on. I've been thinking about having you on here really for years before I even had this thing. I thought you're the guy that I want to talk to, and great to have you here. Really,
I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm really honored to be joining on your show, especially to be the first guest after your break.
Yes. Well, you know what I love about this, Jason, is that years ago, back in 2013, I'd actually sent you a message, and it was actually July of 2013, and I sent it to you on LinkedIn, and I'd said, I don't know if you remember that or not, but it was basically sending you a message of how inspired I was by you, and that you're just a hero, and then I had worked in a burn center as well, and I probably, if memory serves, I think I saw you on the episode of the First 48. And that's one of the reasons that I'd actually reached out to you and said, I got to write this guy. And I'd heard about you, but I built up the courage to send you a message, and you were kind enough to respond. And,
I guarantee I still have that. It's hard to believe that was 11 years ago. And now you've been on the First 48 twice as many times as me.
I've been on there a long time, I'll tell you. And I had no idea I was even going to be on the First 48. So that's pretty amazing that we share that as well. So tell me, you became a police officer, and you've given podcasts all over the place. So but I think what's going to be interesting is I really want to talk about, number one, you get on the department, you're inspired by a police officer who happened to be killed in the line of duty. Tell us about that.
It was March 26th of 1999. And I mean, I had thought about being a police officer from a young age. I always felt a call towards service, enamored with the uniforms, joined the military out of high school. And then when I got home from the military, I got married young, had a couple kids, and the responsibilities and that, the thought of being a police officer just kind of faded away. It wasn't a calling or anything yet. I didn't know it would be. I had a really good job. I was making good money and taking care of my family, living the old-fashioned American dream. And then March 26th of 99, Officer Mark Atkinson was shot and killed in the line of duty, and I really can't explain why it was Mark or his critical incident, but it did change my life, and I applied the next day and got through the process after a few months. Started the academy in September of '99. I was the first graduating class of 2000.
Okay, and so you'd been on for years, and then this particular incident. Well, first of all, when you got on what was your dream job ultimately? Did you even know, or were you just going to
I
kind
knew.
of feel it
Yeah.
out and see where you?
I knew even in the academy when we'd sit around and daydream and somebody would want to be, a canine or a SWAT officer, or somebody would want to be the chief of police. I knew that no matter what, I had to be a homicide detective. I had to investigate murders, and I had to work with those families and speak for the victims who couldn't. I knew right away, like, I won't promote, no interest. I'm going to be a homicide detective. That's my only, that is my calling.
Was there any particular case that maybe you remember as growing up that kind of led you to wanting to do that, or was that just something that just kind of the light switch went off when you got out of the academy? You're like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think it was. Well, I mean, obviously, I grew up. I'm about to turn 52, so I was, I always tell people I was so blessed. I turned 8 in 1980 and 18 in 1990. So my perfect 10 years was in the greatest decade ever. And of course, you remember what TV was like, all the fun, romantic things you'd see. And I mean, I always, had an interest, but I had an interest in everything, answering 911 calls, taking bad guys to jail. And I wanted to do all that stuff. But the homicide thing, I think it was just, I don't know, always felt kind of the compassion and just wanted to be involved in that. I mean, it's hard to explain, right? Like, as an officer, your strengths and your weaknesses. I would have never been good undercover. I just know I wouldn't have been. So I wouldn't have done undercover, wouldn't have done drugs, couldn't have worked child crimes. I think it would have been way too hard on me. God bless the officers that do that. Right. But murder and homicide was something that I was just like, you know what? That's something I want to be around, and I can't prevent it. It's going to happen, especially in a big city like Phoenix. But when it does, I want to be the one that works for these families.
Yeah. And I had the same desire. Well, really for me, I wanted to be a homicide guy since I was a kid. So it was just because of the Manson murders and the Hillside Stranglers and stuff running around Los Angeles. So from there you get out on the streets, you're having a blast. You're probably, basically kicking ass and taking names, I'm sure. And just loving it. And then from there, talk to me about that night. What was your evening like when you started that evening?
Well, first of all, the ironic thing was it was March 26th, again, 2001. It was 2 years to the day after Mark Atkinson died. And the irony of that is crazy. And so I went to work that day with, that extra sense of duty, that extra sense of pride, wearing that uniform, honoring him. And I still remember leaving briefing and driving all the way across the city. Like, I ignored policy, procedure. I could have cared less. I left briefing and I went over to where he was shot and killed. I went to his memorial marker and I spent some time there making the sign of the cross, thanking him for his service and sacrifice, thanking him for being my why. And then I hit the streets, went 10-8 as we call it, and went through a pretty quiet, boring day, which is the dumbest thing cops ever say, but we say it all the time. A couple of minor car accident calls, a couple of paper reports. So wasn't a lot going on. It was a Monday. And then 11:30 p.m., call came out of an unknown trouble. And at first, it wasn't in my area of responsibility, so I didn't pay any attention to it. But the officers in that area were busy. Call came out again. I wasn't doing anything, so I said, all right, I'll head that direction. And interestingly enough, it was a dead body call with blood. So it sounded like a violent crime being committed. And hit my lights and siren and started heading that direction. And as I got to a traffic light, in a pretty busy part of Phoenix, right under a state route overpass, right next to Phoenix Children's Hospital, Arizona Heart Institute, just a very busy, big intersection. And had a red light. So, you're going to stop and make sure that people getting on and off the freeway will yield. It takes a second and a half to clear an intersection. And right then when I was going to proceed is when I was struck from behind. You got the numbers right. Guy was having an epileptic seizure, hit me doing 115 miles an hour, and car Crown Vic burst into flames. And that started what the last 23 and a half years have been.
Yeah. Did he die? Did the
No, he didn't die. He actually only had a broken leg. But here's the crazy part too. There's just so many. Like if I took this story to Hollywood, they would laugh me out of the room. They'd be like, that didn't happen. He had a passenger in the backseat of his taxi. And taxis, like police cars, have that center plexiglass divider. Well, First of all, imagine being in the backseat of a car doing over 100 miles an hour. That has to be insanely scary, right?
Yeah.
And this guy didn't think it'd be a good idea to wear a seatbelt. So he got ejected all the way through the front windshield. He survived.
Yeah, I didn't even hear. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I don't even know I'd ever heard that about that passenger. Yeah. That's crazy.
I might not have told that too many times. Well, and just something that you can definitely appreciate too. When they, the second responding fire units got there and they saw this man's body laying about 100 feet away, they rushed to his aid. He was wearing Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail outfit. He had just gotten released from jail and called a cab to get a ride home. And then they run into a truck.
I have heard this. Yeah,
you can't help but laugh.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy. Well, you know how it is. You know how it is sometimes where, sometimes you'll die from a paper cut, but how in the world? And so did you suffer? All right, so you got burned. What was the percent that you were burned at overall?
43%. Neck, head, and face. I'm sorry. Neck, head, and face were 4th degree. Shoulders to my hands, 3rd degree, and the tops of my thighs, 3rd degree. Chest, stomach, back, not burned because of my bulletproof vest, which went a long way and saved my life. Actually, a lot of things saved my life. I might have to put my bulletproof vest as number one, because if my chest had been burned like my face, I would have died within just a couple of minutes. And outside of those burns, I had 2 cracked ribs and a mild concussion.
Okay, so that's what I was interested in, is what was your additional injuries that you had to contend
that was
with?
it.
You had a concussion, a couple of broken ribs, any smoke inhalation?
Hours later.
Did you have any smoke inhalation that you had to contend with? And
no, but that's because I was knocked unconscious, so I wasn't yelling, screaming in the middle of that fear and sucking in all that toxic hot air, which also, clearly saved my life, because the inhalation burns, you're not going to recover from those. And the fire department got me out so quick. And I think I was just at rest and breathing really shallow. So I ended up with nothing interior.
Okay. So you go to the hospital, and I know you don't remember a good portion. You don't remember. Did they put you like in a medically induced coma? Is that?
I was unconscious and pretty much dying, and get to the hospital, got me intubated, got me identified. First of all, nobody knew who I was, and got me identified. My best friend, who's now chief of police here in one of our local cities, he's the one who identified me with a tattoo. He rushed, woke my wife up, got my parents out of bed, contacted our friends, and got everybody down there. They brought in my priest to give me last rites. And the doctor, the guy who introduced me on that video, Dr. Dan Caruso, just one of the most amazing healers, lifesavers we've ever known. And unfortunately, Dr. Caruso died of cancer. He lost his own battle. But he told my family, Jason's not going to survive this. but I got to get him into surgery. And yeah, they put me into a medically induced coma just to keep me quiet and out of pain.
Well, and just for the listeners, just to kind of educate them a little bit, you've got first degree burns are like a sunburn. Second degree burns are going to be your blisters. Third degree burns are full thickness burns where you don't really have pain from those. And then if you have third degree burns, oftentimes you're going to have skin grafts, which are like another second degree burn to cover that. So you're causing more burn, or you're causing more areas of skin that are going to be exposed. And then on top of it, a fourth degree burn is going to go down to the bone. And a burn is basically, for 1%, you're talking about the palm of your hand. So if you think about your palm and putting that all over your body, like your chest would be 18%, your head, and I think your head is 7%. I can't remember, something like that.
Yeah.
Your neck is 2% or something along those lines. It's 43% is an extraordinary area of your surface, especially with fourth degree burns, because that's generally amputation. That's generally what happens with that. So you're in there, and that's actually what I did, Jason. If I had been working there, if you'd came to Baptist Burn Center where I worked, then you would have been meeting. That's what I did. I would debride you, and then I did burn dressing changes in the tank room. That was my job at 18 years old. Can you believe it? And then from there, but that's I know a lot of times a lot of the patients wouldn't remember because of all of the pain medication they were on, etc.
Yeah.
So, and how traumatic that whole scenario is.
I give you credit for going through that, because the pain is it's unique. It's one of a kind with burns, and the debridement. I can't believe you had to do that. Again, I give you a lot of respect for that, and I know you heard a lot of screams and saw a lot of tears.
I did. I'll tell you what, Jason. Here's the one thing, and it really wasn't. It's not me that went through it. It's you guys. It's all the patients. But I'll tell you something. When I started there, we were so busy, and we had physical therapists that worked in there too. And here I am, some young kid, and they're like, "Hey, we're too busy. Just go over here and start pulling staples on this guy." And they showed me how to do like 1 or 2. Right. And they're on your own. And my best teachers were the patients. They were like, no, hang on, do it this way, do it that way, and then put the Silvadine on this way, that kind of a thing. So anyway, so you go through that, you're up there, and then when you come out of the coma, you'd been out for quite some time, and then you wake up, and it's been what, 2.5 months? Is that what I've read?
Yep, 2.5 months. I woke up or they woke me up, weaned me out to medicine on June 12th.
What was that like, waking up and then learning all of this all of a sudden?
Quietly chaotic, I guess, because I was blind, couldn't move, laying in the hospital, had lost half my fingers, amputation. I'm completely blind, can't feel anything due to all the medication, and just really surreal, being told what had happened by my wife, or, and then being like, yeah, that's enough. I don't say anything else. And then so I say quietly chaotic because it was overwhelming, but I remember it just being like too much to process. And then as I learned things, it was mostly fear, I guess. What are my kids going to think of me? Lost my job, love my job. The surgeries, the pain, how am I going to put my life back together, kind of stuff. And, we all want things to happen tomorrow or next week. And I knew from a very early stage of this that I was facing years of rehabilitation and all that encompasses, between the surgeries and the therapy, and just trying to, how am I going to regain any resemblance of the life that I had before?
Yeah, and that's the thing about you that I just how many years ago was it? 23 years? Is that what we're talking?
Yeah, March of 2001. So coming up on 24 years soon.
So, and you had 55 surgeries, and I'm just curious because I know that the point of relaxation is the point of contraction. And so at least that's what we used to say. So basically what I'm talking about is that if you don't keep stretching and exercising areas like your fingers and stuff like that, do you still have issues with contractions?
Oh yeah, especially my hands. But the hands were the worst. The deformities on my hands were just crazy. Still can't really move them much, but I've definitely overcome and adapted to those injuries. I can tell you, there's nothing more painful than your hands. The nerves regenerating was a lot of pain. My wife would come to me when I first got home, and she'd say, "All right, it's time for a shower," and I'd break down in tears right there.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'm a pretty tough guy, and I'd just sit there and cry. I'd be like 1,000 needles going into you coming out of that shower head. But I would have some surgeries. It's easier as an adult. As a child, when you're burned and then you grow, your skin grafts aren't going to grow with you. So you have to have a lot of what are called Z-plasties and things like that to relieve the pressure. And I didn't have to deal with that. But yeah, things were constricting. My chin was stuck on my neck for a long time. I couldn't talk, couldn't pronounce words, couldn't eat. Just went through all the burn. Again, burns is it's a unique, incredibly shitty injury. There's no other way to say it. It just is. So I went through all the stuff.
It's not like a gallbladder. I mean, where you're good to go after 6 weeks. I mean, or whatever. Or nowadays, this is like years, and it never stops.
No,
even when you get old.
It's lifelong. Yep.
Did you have any? And I this question, I'm just kind of interested. Did you have any issues with drug dependence when you got out because of all of the pain medication?
That's a great question, and the answer is no, and I'm very thankful. But here's why. Here's the secret to that. And again, I am very thankful for that because I have an addictive personality. I always have, and I know that about myself. And I knew that I didn't want to go through what I was going through, only to fall under that spell and then never overcome it. And don't forget, nowadays you're seeing it, right? A kid who is doing great in life gets a football injury, goes in for surgery, comes out, takes that first Percocet, and it's over, right? And then they turn to the addiction, and they're either dead or whatever later on. Well, we know a lot about these opioids now and what they're doing. Back then, when I would come out of the surgery, doctors would be like, "Hey, you want 100 Vicodin? You want 100 Percocet? You want 100 Oxy?" No problem. But because I knew myself and my wife knew me very well, and I give her the credit because I was completely useless. I couldn't take my own medication. I couldn't open a bottle, couldn't hold a glass to take a drink of water and swallow it with. But when I would go through a surgery and they would give me the medication, she would let me take it for 72 hours as prescribed. And then it was crushed, destroyed, and completely removed from the house. And she'd hand me Advil and be like, "Good luck." And it's a blessing though. So I never had to deal with even coming close to getting addicted. Because I think it could have got me really easy. I mean, I understand why it happens.
Yeah. And the other thing, and I kind of experienced this I became best friends with a burn patient that got burned like 68%. He was my age, And so when he was in there, I remember talking to him. Here I am, I'm just out of high school, and this kid's just out of high school too. And he's burned massively. And after he got out and stuff, he was, we were inseparable. I just love this guy. And he started wearing the Jobst garment and stuff like that. So walking into a convenience store wearing a Jobst garment at 10 o'clock at night back then was, these people think they're getting robbed, kind of a deal. Oh, yeah. And not only that, but just the, I think I've heard you mention something about this too. And it is the stares, the questions, that kind of stuff. And you probably still deal with that. Although you're super well known in Phoenix. My relatives live in Phoenix and they know who you are and stuff like that. So everybody knows who you are there, but I'm sure you still have to contend with that to some extent. And that's another thing that people don't realize that kind of comes with this. It's like a constant emotional issue that you got to deal with. I would think. I'm just guessing, but I know when he dealt with it, I hated it for him. It was terrible.
Yeah. I would consider myself very lucky in the sense that because I was in the line of duty, the media was very good to me. Back then cops were very well loved and respected, and my family was treated well. And then I had a lot of blessings that came out of that job, doing things like carrying the Olympic torch, meeting the president, throwing out the first pitch at a baseball game. Then we had another baby, and that was covered on the news big time. And so I experienced.
Well, hang on, Jason. Mention real quick. Don't forget. I want you to mention something real quick. Tell that little blip about carrying the Olympic torch. What that late? What if
when the young girl gave me the instructions of when you're carrying the torch, make sure you don't get the flame too close to your face, and I was like, no shit, like. But you know what? That taught me, Jason. I had not laughed or smiled for 10 months. And on that night, I went back to my buddies on the police department. I'm like, you're not going to believe what this girl just said to me. And we were all doubled over laughing. And I've been laughing ever since. So
I love it.
But yeah, I travel all over the country, even internationally. I mean, I do 60 to 70 speeches a year sharing my story. And I love to travel. I love airports, airplanes, hotels, you name it. I'm probably weird, but yeah, people, when I'm out of state and people don't know me, I get stared at all the time, and I'm sitting usually alone, of course. And again, I'm very blessed. It took a lot of years. Don't get me wrong. It took a lot of years for me to regain my self-confidence, to regain that kind of stuff, that people staring at me or comments, questions, they don't bother me. I know who, and more importantly, why I am, and I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, I love my life. I absolutely would not change anything for a lot of reasons. So I'm able to handle that, I think, better than a lot of people. And I feel for them because, humans aren't always that kind to each other. And, but if I get stared at, I'm happy to throw a smile, or once in a while, though, if I'm in a grumpy mood, I might tell somebody I just sucked at cooking meth. My garage blew up. I might say something stupid just to make them feel uncomfortable. You never know.
So you go and throw his website up there, Amanda, if you don't mind, BurningShield.com. And actually, he wrote a book called Burning Shield. I highly recommend that you go ahead and check that out. Great reviews in reference to that book. And you self-published that book, and it's out there. And I've heard people just rave about it and so forth. And I plan on reading that here in the very near future. And there's that book. He's got his website, and like he said, he teaches and presents. And I just listened to your TED Talk, actually, and that was extraordinary as well. How did you end up getting involved in that TED Talk?
Yeah, that was people would be surprised if there's any TED people out there. I'm probably going to piss them off right now, but it's probably the least favorite thing I've ever done.
Really?
And a little backstory: 2 days before it was going to take place, there were 6 of us that day that were going to go on stage, and you're allowed 13 minutes. And I speak from the heart, Jason. I've got workshops on resilience and grit. I teach public speaking. I have my keynote that could be anywhere from 30 minutes to 4 hours. So I've been doing this a long time, and it's something I really, really love. And this organization, while they've done a lot of good, but it's a multi-billion-dollar worldwide thing, and they're very strict. And it had to be things I was going to say had to be written down, and then somebody'd be chopping it up. And 2 days before the talk, I called them and I said, you know what, find somebody else. I ain't doing it. And of course they were like, you have to do it. I'm like, well, then you know what? I'm going to speak from the heart, and I'm going to do. And I came up with that yardstick thing that day. Yeah. People see it and they think that's like what I talk about. That literally happened that day, because I was still going, what the hell am I going to say in 13 minutes? That's not enough time.
Right.
So that's how I got involved in that. And I am proud of the speech itself, but it's not something that I really advertise or look back on as like, oh, hey, I did a TED talk. It was one of the greatest things. No, it blew.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've never done one, and I didn't even know how. But that's interesting because I always thought, man, that would be tough talking for 13 minutes.
It's brutally hard.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk for 2 hours. It is painfully hard to talk for anything less than 30 minutes. I think is really hard.
So your dream job, homicide, and it ultimately ended up happening. And tell us how that ended up happening, because I mean that's a big deal. It is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Well, first of all, I hear horror stories all across the country from a lot of officers, and I really feel for them. But the city of Phoenix is very supportive of their employees. And I had a great chain of command. It took me 18 months, but I got back to work. I started out as a public information officer, and I had a great mentor, a guy named Jack Valentine. He's got a great book out, one of the most successful undercover hitmen, homicide detectives in the entire country, but worked almost 30 years in Phoenix. And he got me up there. And I started out, I wasn't going to be a case carrying detective. And actually, I never was. I didn't have the skill set or anything. But again, my chain of command was awesome. Went to a lot of schools, a lot of on-the-job training. And I did work my way up to where I was the scene investigator for our squad. And that was a job I was really proud of, because that's an intense job. For the most part on the scene, you're the only one in there. You're the only one allowed in there because of the importance of the evidence and chain of custody and all this stuff. The photographer's going to come in briefly, and you'll have some evidence techs come in, collect blood and other things, and then you wait for the medical examiner. But there's times, you could be in there 6, 12, 16 hours. You'll be inside of a scene. And knowing that I could do that, and I thought I was pretty good at it. And then the first 48 thing, that just happened to be a fluke, how I ended up that was my only case that I was ever a lead detective on. And nobody even understands the backstory on how that happened. And then for them to like it enough that they carried it. And you know what? I solved that case, and I'm very proud of it. I still got that dude's mugshot. Proudly.
Well, wasn't it a whodunnit? It wasn't like an easy.
Well, it was completely whodunit. It was a guy who was shot. A guy who was shot in the chest in the early evening in Phoenix in an empty parking lot. Nobody heard the gunshot. Nobody saw anything. I mean, I started with exactly 0, and I begged my sergeant, because the two people who were up next on our squad for a case happened to be leaving the next day for the International Homicide Investigators Association meeting that they have every year.
Yeah, remember that? That's your intro into the episode.
This was a total nothing. No way can we close this case. Had nothing, and I begged my sergeant, man. I was like, please, let me try. Let me do it. And he was gracious. He's like, have at it, man. And
I'm sure there wasn't a lot of detectives that were like, oh no, I want this whodunit.
No, not at all. And then, just the way the pieces fell into place, and how the feeling. I mean, there's just, you got to be careful, I guess, how you talk. And I'm not politically correct at all. But I still remember his family. I still remember his wife. I still remember his body, and that stuff matters. But when those pieces started falling into place, and the excitement and the adrenaline, and then when I finally figured out who did it, and then I gave the packet to our SWAT team saying, he could be at one of these 4 places. Here's his picture. Here's what you do. You give the SWAT team, a manila envelope with 30 pages in it, and like, hey, hopefully they'll call me in a week, right? They call me an hour later, and they're like, we got him. Like, wow. So, and then went through the interview, and he admitted to that, got him for another ag assault shooting during that had happened a year before. And it was just something I was super proud of, that I was able to say I did it. I did it one time. I led a case and saw it all the way through to the end. And he got 28 years in prison for second-degree murder. Yeah.
Did he end up admitting to it in the interview?
Yep. Yes, he did.
If you want to
Sure.
watch that episode, it's actually season 3, episode number 11. And do you remember the title of that?
Crash.
Okay, Crash. It's a split with another city, I think, right?
Yeah, it's split with Memphis, and mine's called Crash because that's what started. Our victim had gotten rear-ended the night before his murder, and the people who rear-ended him were like, no, don't call the cops, don't call insurance, we're just going to pay for it. And when they called him the next day, he said, meet us here. They just pulled up, did a drive-by, and shot and killed him and drove away, which is horrible that human life was worth a $1,200 bumper. But, yeah, it's a great episode. I wish they wouldn't have split it because they could have easily gotten a full hour out of it.
Yeah.
They make it seem like I solved the case in 2 days, but if you notice, I changed clothes like 9 times. So,
Well, you know what, Jason, I've been on there long enough to sometimes if you watch one of my episodes, sometimes I'm the thin Jason, and then sometimes I'm the fat Jason. So you're like, come on, they're going to see this. You know what I mean? The avid viewers are going to notice. But
yeah, they might be like, I think that was 6 months apart right there, not 48 hours. It's a great show though. They treated us really well.
Oh, they're great. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you right now, I think they're actually talking with Phoenix again, and they may actually be returning in the future. They've been trying to get back to Arizona for a while. Mesa supposedly was going to sign on, but they had issues, and then I think Phoenix may be coming back. So I hope they do. I hope they do too, because I think people need to see other people other than us, and they need to change it up a little bit. But anyway, so you speak all over the place. You're open to speak. You can do, and that's the thing. People, if you don't understand why I brought him on here, you talk about inspirational, motivational. If you have a bad day, tell us a little bit about that one thing about your 10% and 90%. I want to get that in here. I don't want to leave that out.
Yeah, it's and the quote's out there. I don't think anybody can really claim ownership of it, whoever started it, but it's very true. And it's life's 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. I'm a big fan of quotes. I finally came up with my own. It's tattooed all across my arm. It's, but I think about other things all the time. But that one, it's just at the bottom line. It's true. And what I like to remind people in my speech, when I'm talking at the beginning, I talk about waking up. I talk about the nightmare and the tears and the fear and the anger. I talk about yelling and cussing at people who were there to love and support me. I talk about the times I didn't feel like doing therapy or wanted to give up, not be dead, but just wanted to sit and do nothing and be left alone. We're not always going to win the battle, even though we are in charge. One of the few things is our attitude and our effort. Every person we face, every situation we deal with, we get to choose how to react and respond. And it's important to know that you're not going to win those battles all the time. You're not going to be the best version of yourself. I mean, I try and fail all the time, miserably, fall flat on my face to this day. But you know what? Just get up and keep going and try to be better. And then on the days when you learn, on the days when you leave somebody better than you found them, when you think about leaving your seat better than you found it, whether as a homicide detective, as a father, as a podcaster, as anything, like you have so many routes you could take to make your days successful and your overall life successful. And my face and my hands might be disfigured and scarred, but my heart, my character, my soul are not. I'm still Jason, and my path in life went a little bit different, but the 90% of how I've been able to react to it, the love and support that I've had from my family and friends over the years. And now I'm doing a job. I've been one of the lucky ones that seems like every job I've had, like, oh, it's the greatest job in the world. I loved when I was in the military. I loved being a patrol officer, especially back then when there weren't cameras and CNN wasn't calling you out for everything. It was, like you said, kicking ass and taking names, doing it the right way. And then, of course, homicide, without a doubt, to me, greatest job ever. But now, like when I go out and talk and I give these, whether I give a keynote or I give a workshop, whether I'm talking to law enforcement or talking to a real estate convention, I mean, I'll be up there with words coming out of my mouth, but in my head, I'm like, God, I need to wake up from this. This is the greatest thing in the world that I get to do. That I get to do this. I love it. So I've been incredibly lucky.
Yeah, me too. I get to do the same thing, not to your level, and not that many, but man, there's something that just really gets you going, man, up there in front of the more people, the better.
Yes.
You can thrive off of them. It's addicting.
Yes.
And just to know that you're making a difference, because you don't want to be one of those speakers that they forget when they walk out the door. You want them to remember you. And that's what I try to do each and every time. And so and there's very few people that can do it. So you're in a very small group of people. And it's awesome, man. I'm telling you, dude, you're my friend. You're my friend from here on, Jason, for real. I seriously, I've got mad respect for you. I have for many, many years, and it's going to continue. And I even have more respect for you now after actually meeting you in person. I just think that your attitude, based on what you have went through, is extraordinary. And the fact of the matter is that going through what you went through, and for me seeing behind the scenes, kind of seeing what parts of what you went through to an extent, people have it's just for you to have I know that you had dark days too. There's just no doubt about it. I know you've talked about it. I know that, but for you to be able to get to where you're at today, I really hope that you're still returning to burn centers, or at least the burn center that's locally, to be that person to show people that you can actually get past, I know that you're doing that, but
oh yeah, for sure. I love working with anybody who's going through adversity, because it's very important to me that we don't compare our adversity. So, whether you have cancer or you're in a wheelchair, you lost your job, going through a divorce, or you've been burned, you've been shot, adversity is adversity, and whatever's yours, you got to own it. You got to embrace it. I love working with anybody and just trying to give them some glimmers of, hope. Hope is everything. And I try to, there's the running toward adversity. I get to work with these.
Mention that.
Well, I got invited a couple of years ago over to England to work with Ipswich Town Football Club, and they're now in the Premier League. And to work with these athletes, these are the top athletes, football players, soccer is, of course, we know it in America, but it's been amazing. And they put running towards adversity in their locker room. My logo's in there, and I keep in touch with the players. We'll WhatsApp or DM each other on Instagram a lot, and I watch all their games. I've been to 4 in person, and look forward to going back as much as I can. It's an incredible group, and I feel like a kid on Christmas morning when I get to go over there and work with them, because they're just it's pretty awesome.
And you just returned from over there, so
I was there. I was there for 9 days in the middle of October. Yeah.
Does your wife ever get to travel with you in some of these exciting destinations?
No, well, I mean, she could, but she's a school teacher. She's very busy, and we are now grandparents for just recently, for the second time, had our first granddaughter. So we have one of each, and so if she travels, it's going to be to be with them, and I do go to some great places. I went to Lake Placid last week. Never been there. And awesome. I saw the hockey rink where the Miracle on Ice took place in 1980. I was watching that as an 8-year-old. And again, I was like a little kid, and the fall colors. I'm a desert. I live in Arizona. There's nothing exciting. But the red, yellow, orange of the trees, and Lake Placid, New York, I'm like, oh, I wish you could have been here. It's just
Yeah.
crazy good. I just love seeing all the different places. And
Yeah. I remember
almost,
that too as a kid.
yeah.
It was amazing. So what's next? What you want to do? There's got to be something more is there anything else that you want to do that you just haven't, and it's, if you could get there, that's what you're looking towards.
No, I'll tell you what, if I could bottle this up, I would. And I don't want it to change. I'll tell you, I went through my roughest, darkest period was when I have 3 kids. And when my youngest went off to college, he went to college in Charlotte. He's now a senior. He just turned 22 years old yesterday or 2 days ago. But that was a real loss of identity for me. My kids growing up, becoming an empty nester, and I got through that. And now all I care is I'm very lucky. These kids are really, really good human beings, and they're very successful in their own lanes. And I just want them, if every night when I go to bed, I can be like, the kids are okay. That's really my only goal. And I want to keep speaking as long as I can and try and stay healthy. I'll be 52 years old Sunday, November 3rd. And so, but I have there's nothing else. I feel like I've reached the top of the mountain, and if I could just somehow not fall off, that'll be enough.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're coming to an end. I got to tell you something, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on, honestly. Buy his book, Burning Shield. Go to his website. Check it out. Read about it. There's other pictures that are on there. Actually, there's a motherload of other podcasts, and you can watch them and get a lot more information. Follow him on Instagram or Twitter. I just clicked on there and started following him today on Instagram, and I'm going to rush over to Twitter if I haven't already followed you there. Do that, but consider him as a person to come and speak for you in the future. And I'm sure that you guys could, he can speak to anybody. And there's a lot of people that need some really good inspiration in our world that we're living in today, for sure. A lot of positivity and realism would be nice. And I have no doubt that he does that. So thanks a lot. Be sure to follow me at Detective Jason White on Facebook. You can watch this episode for the next week. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well. If you have any questions on that, please, I'll actually respond. I'm one of those people, and I'm sure Jason is too. I'll actually respond to you because, I'm nobody special, that I'm beyond the point of responding to somebody. And man, thank you to all the listeners for watching us or checking us out for episode number 30. Jason, dude, you're the bomb. Seriously. I like I said, I'm not just trying to sit here and stroke you. I'm telling you that the last thing I'm going to say, I get asked this a lot. Hey, well, what about this guy? What about that guy? Well, first of all, I got to like them. All right. So number one, I have to like them, and I have to be impressed with them. And so that's why I pick people very, very selectively. And that's why Jason is here, because he is top notch, top of the heap. And he's he's a homicide guy. We're both homicide. So, I got to give kudos for you for that. Listen, man, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for being here. We got to cut off here. And once again, thanks, Jason. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Be safe.
All right. You too. See you all next week.